legitimately just wanted to help. Like if you had a business and you wanted to sell it, it's a confusing process. And so I wanted to educate entrepreneurs that, there's an easier, more efficient way to meet buyers than the traditional route. The place I would start if you're looking to think about markets and market timing is think about what the world is going to look like in 2 years, not what it looks like today.
Welcome to another episode of the Dan Lok Show. Today I have the founder of MicroAquire with me on the show today. I am so excited because I've been actually watching the platform and growing, and it's such an interesting idea. So having Andrew on the show, I'm excited. So Andrew, welcome to the Dan Lok Show.
Thanks, Dan. Excited to be here. Appreciate you inviting me.
I always want to go back to the little bit of history. What inspire you to start this particular business, and when did you start it?
Good question. So probably dates back a decade ago. So I started a business called Business Apps in college. I grew that to about a little over 10 million in revenue, and then sold that to a private equity firm, which was a life-changing event. Sold it when I was 29, started it when I was 21. That we can dive into that, which was just a crazy experience. And then after that, I started another company, a blockchain trading company called Altcoin, which was also acquired by a strategic buyer, being K to the Future. And so after that, I was actually looking to buy a SaaS company myself. I thought, I don't want to spend 2 years with an idea that might not work out. My background is mostly in sales, marketing, just growth strategy stuff. That's what I really enjoy. And so I looked at the market though, and it just was this really fragmented market full of brokers and investment bankers that really favored buyers. And so I just thought there was an opportunity to remove the middleman and let buyers and founders connect directly to sell their companies.
And for our audience, our listeners, maybe explain to us what is the current model for MicroAquire?
Yeah, so MicroAquire is a marketplace where you can buy startups. You can buy SaaS startups, you can buy e-commerce startups, direct-to-consumer, mobile app startups. There's even some crypto startups. There's about 400 startups live. We've done about 300 acquisitions. But in terms of the business model, typically when you go to sell your business, you'll work with an investment banker or a broker, and they'll charge a large commission fee. So that can range from 5% to 10%. And MicroAquire does this for free. So you can sell your business on MicroAquire 100% free for founders, no fees, no commissions, no exclusivity. And then our business model, which kind of has a funny side note to it, is we just charge buyers a small fee to be able to contact the sellers. So all the information is also private. So you're not listing your company on Craigslist, going through a few acquisitions. When your team finds out that you're selling your company, you kind of get reactions that range from, am I becoming a millionaire, or am I getting fired? Yeah. So you got to deal with all that. So it's a private network. And MicroAquire Premium is just an annual subscription. I manually verify each buyer to keep the quality high. And it's just a marketplace that, puts entrepreneurs in control when selling their businesses.
And Andrew, in the beginning, how did you get traction? Because as a marketplace is now, you have buyers and sellers. It's not like an e-commerce business, right? You have to create demand. You have to create a lot of. It's both, right? You don't want to have too many sellers, not enough buyers. You don't have too many buyers and not enough sellers. That's not good either. So in the beginning, what did you focus on to just get the initial traction?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when you're building a marketplace, you want to focus on the hardest side of the market first. And so the hardest side really is getting startups, getting them comfortable listing key financial metrics, and everything a buyer would need to make an assessment on if this is a good acquisition opportunity. So I started focusing on founders first. And so I took 200-300 phone calls. I know that's kind of old school, but I always recommend entrepreneurs to pick up the phone, talk to people, build relationships. So that was the initial, I guess pre-launch of MicroAquire where
So you were just cold calling these like founders?
so I would cold email them,
Yes.
schedule a phone call, talk
Yes.
about if they were interested in selling their business. And
Mm.
then this is when MicroAquire was like an MVP. And so I would onboard
Okay.
them
Okay.
by hand. We have a much more streamlined process now, but
Mm.
yeah, I was really kind of scrappy. And then got featured in a few news outlets, and that helped kind of bring buyers to the marketplace. And now we just have a flywheel effect that's really just driven through word of mouth.
Mm. And have you done any kind of pay advertising or anything that you use to attract, like say, buyers or sellers consistently? Any pay
So
effort?
yeah, we do. We just started running like a light Facebook ad campaign. We use AdRoll for retargeting. I bought ad placements in areas that have good pockets of entrepreneurs, such as Product Hunt, Dig. Nothing major. And I think that's also key when building a business. Is my focus with MicroAquire was really to build a very capital efficient business. So really most of it's just me marketing the business, telling the story, building the brand. And that's really the best way to build a company, in my opinion, is letting customers share success stories. So that's another part I focus heavily on is, when founders get acquired, like let's tell that story and let's inspire other entrepreneurs to show that they can, get acquired too.
When did you had the first user just did a successful transaction? Like say they sold the business. What was that like?
I actually remember that. That's a great question. So it was a small company. So for context for the listeners, there's acquisitions that you can do that are companies valued at say 25,000 all the way up to 2, 3, 4, 5 million now.
Mm-hmm.
But in the beginning, it was smaller startups. So yeah, there was this moment. I was actually on vacation. This was before the pandemic started. I launched the business in January of 2020. And someone emailed me and they just said, "Hey, we found a buyer," and there's a ton of different people reaching out and submitting LOIs. And then I remember that moment. I was like, this works. Like, So, and another thing, Dan, is I've shared this publicly, but when I first launched MicroAquire, I wasn't sure if it was going to work.
Yes.
Just me as an entrepreneur, I just felt this needed to exist.
Mm.
Because everyone has those moments where they're, maybe they just want to see what buyers will pay for their business. Maybe you just want to, exit the business quickly. Whatever that is, removing all that friction from the market is what MicroAquire does. So I really just built what I felt needed to exist. So when that first deal closed, that
Like,
was a moment
yes.
where I was
He was
like,
like, yes,
yeah,
it works. This is the validation, right?
yeah, it was exciting. I mean, I obviously asked if I can get a referral from the person, and obviously talked to him and got feedback on the product, what worked, what didn't work. And that's also how I kind of build MicroAquire as well, is just through a lot of feedback from users.
But I do think that because Andrew, with your background, because you are the customer, right? You're looking for deals, and at the same time you've done multiple exits, so you kind of know what buyers want and what sellers want. And it's interesting how you're creating a platform based on. I think he's what I want to see, right? He's what I think I would like to see, and I don't want to pay the 5%, 10% fee to somebody else. When you were talking to founders, do you find that they are very receptive to the idea? Like, hey, this is great. Like, wow. Like, or do you need a lot of convincing when you were just talking to them on the phone?
That's a good question. Some, yeah. I mean, not every founder is ready to sell. I think that's the key point there. And you really just need to be in a place more mentally, I think. Like, it just depends where the founder is in their journey. Some are ready to exit right away. Some are, they want to build a $1 billion business and they're going to run it for the next decade. So, mixture of conversations. Some were thrilled. Some were like, "Oh, I've been working on this, but I have another idea I'd like to potentially start working on, and I can use this sale as seed capital, or I don't even focus on that startup anymore. I'd love to sell it." And then others are like, "We're growing so fast that maybe follow up in a year. So it'd be a mix, but I think just having those conversations with early founders in terms of validating if they would be willing to work with a marketplace like MicroAquire was key, because I would gather that feedback and I would understand, what would make them comfortable, what sort of privacy settings, how can I best position their startup to buyers to actually attract interest. So yeah, it was a mixed bag, and it still is today.
And I want to deep dive a little bit in on the buyer and seller side. So let's say for someone looking to sell the e-com business or the SaaS, what do they need to do to prepare so that a buyer would be interested? Like, how do they prepare in terms of what systems they need in place or financials, like to have the highest probability of a successful exit?
That's a great question. So the first thing I would say there is just having a good business. If it's growing, specifically if it's profitable, those are really good acquisition targets. And there's a lot of buyers in the market that are looking for profitable SaaS, e-commerce, direct to consumer, et cetera, businesses to acquire. But in terms of preparing, it's pretty simple on MicroAquire. So if you use Stripe or ChartMogul or Baremetrics or any of the other billing systems, we integrate that directly.
Like API, just integrate that?
Yeah, so we can show this like beautiful graph to buyers, and it's read only, so you don't share your customers, you don't share any sensitive data, but you're able to prove to buyers that this is my revenue. You're able to connect Google Analytics to show search traffic. But other things, having proper legal counsel, I always recommend. And really just having your books together. Do you have a proper P&L? Do you have a valid reason for selling? Because that's my first question is, why are you looking to sell this business? What does an ideal outcome look like for you? That kind of goes into the relationship part of when selling your business. But yeah, key things is just, when you sign up on MicroAquire, we help improve and position every seller profile so it's appealing to buyers, really highlighting the metrics that buyers will care about, which is, your trailing 12 months revenue, your trailing 12 months profit, what's the tech stack, who's maintaining the code, how much customer support is required to operate the business, just so the buyer has an understanding of, is this going to take a lot of time, little time, is there growth opportunities? And we create a buyer presentation and then you go live on MicroAquire. But yeah, just having a good business, being able to show, proper financials, good P&L is key.
And what's the ratio right now in terms of like how many buyers and how many sellers you have on the platform?
So right now there's about 50,000 buyers on the platform.
Okay.
And then there's about 400 startups. And then out of those 400 startups that are live, I probably approve 1 in 10. So I'm pretty picky in terms of the quality of the startups that go live on MicroAquire. Every startup is manually approved by my team. So again, we'll go through the profile, we'll make everything look as best as we can. So when it's presented to buyers, it's attractive. But yeah, it's definitely a good time to be an entrepreneur. That's for sure.
I'm also curious, how did you make the founders or the sellers feel at ease? Because it is still quite a bit of information, right? Stripe hooked up and integration, like it's a lot of like private information. Like how do you convince them to say, hey, trust us, it's okay. You can share some of these data with potential buyers?
That's a good question. I don't really know how. I would say I try to be as transparent as possible. If you follow me on Twitter, you follow me on LinkedIn, as I've been building MicroAquire, I've kind of brought people along the journey with the success stories, the growth. And I think that really builds a lot of trust with entrepreneurs, because with branding today, people don't want to work directly with a company. They want to work with an individual that they trust. And so I think having a focus on brand and storytelling has really helped with trust. And then just being transparent with the market in terms of, these deals are closing, or positive testimonials from other customers or founders exiting their business. But it's always a challenge. I mean, I just think of it from, if I was in the founder's perspective, like this is sensitive information. I would definitely have some questions. So I'm always open to hop on phone calls, walk through how the product works, share, success stories and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it really just comes down to just, really letting entrepreneurs know that my goal is to, this is I was telling someone this the other day, but my goal with MicroAquire is to create 1,000 millionaires by them exiting through MicroAquire. So I think just understanding how entrepreneurs think, especially from an emotional standpoint, it's a big transaction. It's potentially life-changing for them. And I've been through that. And so I think that helps a little bit too.
Are they all do they have to be profitable in order to be listed on MicroAquire?
No, there's a lot of venture-backed businesses as well. Those would typically be good purchases for, a private equity firm that is able to, if it's losing cash flow, then, there's going to be a lot of retooling of expenses to bring the business to profitability or back on a growth trajectory. But no, there's businesses being ran at break even. Those are ones that are focusing on growth. And then there's ones that are highly profitable, and those ones sell and get acquired the fastest. And then there are a few venture-backed companies where, it just didn't work out. They weren't able to kind of get on that, unicorn trajectory. And so they're looking at
what everybody wants.
Yeah. But, the reality is 90% plus of startups fail. Like,
yeah, of course. Yes.
Startups are really, really, really hard to make work. And so, some people are very happy running a $5-10 million business a year. Some people want to build $1 billion empire that goes public. And so my favorite part about MicroAquire is when I hear stories of a founder that built something to maybe a few 100,000 in revenue, or let's call it $1 million, but they want to build something bigger. And so they're able to sell that business to someone who's thrilled. They're thrilled to run a $1 or $2 or $5 million business.
Yes.
And then that founder can then go on and take another swing at something bigger.
Yes. A few months ago, I was talking to a founder looking to sell and was looking at a deal. And he was telling me, say, Dan, my sweet spot is the 0 to 1 million. I don't want a big business. I don't want anything like that. I'm happy being a creative guy. I'm a tech person. Want to grow something, take a technology, 0 to 1 million, 1 million revenue. I sell that and I go do something else. So he knows that's what he's comfortable with. He's not interested in building a massive team. So every entrepreneurs want different things. Andrew, what about in terms of someone acquiring a business? What advice you have for them? How do they make sure they don't get burned? How do they make sure that they are getting a good deal? What advice would you have for buyers?
Yeah, that's another great question. So MicroAquire also has an integrated M&A advisor directory. So if you're a first-time buyer and you're looking at a $1-2 million deal, or even something smaller,
$500,000.
Yeah, we have a directory of M&A advisors that have transacted, hundreds of deals ranging from 100,000 to upwards of 100 million. So you can hire those individuals hourly or at a fixed rate just to kind of guide you through the process. Like, what is due diligence? What are some things that are red flags? How can we make sure that transition goes properly? How should we structure this deal? How should we value this company? So I recommend that. I also write about these topics a lot. So there's a lot of resources on MicroAquire for you to learn.
Yes.
But my best advice is starting small. Like, if you're looking to acquire businesses, there's great businesses on MicroAquire that, they're making, let's call it 10,000 a year. You can acquire them for 30,000, which is just, revenue times 3. They're great products. They have happy customers, enough where you can, product market fit is there, but you can go through the motions. You can go through submitting a letter of intent, signing an asset purchase agreement, going through the transfer, and then, getting yourself comfortable. So when you look at some larger businesses, you've already kind of gone through the motions of an acquisition instead of, failing on something big and then,
Yes.
creating a bunch of mistakes there. So I'd say start small and step into it. And then educate yourself. There's a lot of resources on MicroAquire that buyers can check out.
So for MicroAcquire, how involved once you kind of hand off the relationship, kind of you make the connections and then they just kind of negotiate on their own? Is this how this works?
Yeah, so MicroAquire's only role is we connect buyers with sellers.
And you charge a fee? And how much is the fee?
There's no fee.
There's
There's
no fee. Okay.
zero commission. It's
Okay.
actually kind of funny. So when I hear about acquisitions closing, it's usually a founder will email me and they'll say, "Hey, we'd like to remove our listing from MicroAquire." And I'm like, "What happened? Is that our conversations going well with buyers?" They're like, "Yeah, we got a $2 million LOI and we're going to
Yes.
move forward with it." I'm like,
Okay.
fantastic.
Got it.
So I respect the privacy of buyers and sellers. I'm here if people have questions or just need support. But buyers are sophisticated and so are founders. And so all of it happens outside of the platform.
Interesting. And I'm also curious because in the beginning your vision was to acquire a SaaS company for yourself, and then you saw this need, and then now you go build another SaaS company because it's based on right. Do you sometimes see deals through the platforms like, yeah, I like that deal. Maybe I should buy that deal myself.
Literally all the time. But what happened was, and candidly, that was an idea for when I first launched MicroAquire, because I ran MicroAquire for free for 10 months just because I loved helping entrepreneurs. I legitimately just wanted to help. Like if you had a business and you wanted to sell it, it's a confusing process. And so I wanted to educate entrepreneurs that, there's an easier, more efficient way to meet buyers than the traditional routes. And yeah, I mean, I see great businesses all day. So it's kind of,
tempting. It's tempting.
yeah, but the thing that is stopping me there is MicroAquire is just growing so fast that I feel that the opportunity with MicroAquire is probably larger than any business I can acquire. And it's just so much fun to run. My whole day I spend talking to entrepreneurs, running awesome businesses, or buyers, running awesome private equity groups or firms or strategic buyers or sometimes CEOs of public companies. So I get to meet a lot of really cool people. And to me, that's enough. As long as I'm having fun, that's kind of my barometer for success.
What's your vision for the company? Like, where is the company in, let's say, 3 to 4 years? And I know that you want to disrupt the investment banking business. Like, what's the vision for MicroAquire?
Yeah, so going back to a previous question you had is, how does a transaction happen? So it happens outside of MicroAquire right now. Usually people will go and grab their own attorney. They'll use
that's right.
escrow.com for
payment,
secure transfer. All the services and like creating a data room. I want to build all of those services into MicroAquire so you can have a full end-to-end platform where you can find a company to buy. If you need some guidance, you can hire an M&A advisor to help guide you through that process. Have escrow built in so the assets of the business are securely transferred.
Got it.
Possibly even streamline legal doc creation like LOI, asset purchase agreement, stock purchase agreement. So I got some big plans in the works. So, but yeah, the goal is to disrupt investment banking and give founders a more efficient way to sell their businesses.
So right now, as a marketplace, it's almost like a highly trust directory, but later on, you kind of want to evolve that into some more ecosystem from kind of A to Z. That you can, if someone goes there, they want to buy, they want to sell, we can help you with this, we can help you with this, we can help you with this, we can help you with this. It's just all the add-on, correct?
Exactly. Like a good example would be, as a founder, you can go live on MicroAquire and you might not know how to communicate with buyers. What do you say? Someone asks for a complicated financial question. How do you answer that? And right now in MicroAquire, you can hire advisors to bring into your deal and help you with those negotiations and help you communicate with buyers so the deal has a higher chance of closing. And What's exciting about that is it also gives buyers more confidence, knowing that there's a professional that's kind of helping in the middle, but they're not taking huge commissions. So it's still a win for founders where they're charging either a flat rate or an hourly rate, because the traditional investment banking model works because they charge a really high commission because they
Yes.
take on a lot of startups, but not all of them sell. Most investment banks have success rates of, I don't know, 30%. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but
Maybe
they
lower.
have huge fees because only a few of them will actually get acquired and they can get that fee. But with MicroAquire, I'm able to connect buyers and sellers much more efficiently. And then at that point, it's just kind of closing the deal. It's just taking it from third base to home base, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's faster, easier, cheaper solutions, right? That's what people want.
Yeah, that's also a great way to build a business.
And so that's the vision for the company. I'm also curious with when you're growing it now. Before we jump on the show, you were sharing with me now that the team is kind of lean, right? How many people you have on the team right now?
So right now, it's mainly me running the whole thing.
Wow.
So I've recently hired my old VP of marketing.
Okay.
I've hired my entire development team full time. Previously,
Okay.
they were just
Contractors.
contractors. Then I have a number of different people that I work with.
Yes.
I recently hired an operations manager as well.
Mm, mm,
And I'm going to be hiring a VP of product, VP of engineering,
mm,
CFO, all people that I've previously worked with in the past. So really excited about that. But
mm.
yeah, right now I'm doing the 4 a.m. to 10 p.m. work day. Just
and
but
and
it's a labor of love.
why,
So it's
why did you
easy.
keep it lean like in just because with your experience you could totally do it like much quicker or you put together a team, but why did you keep it lean and mean? Like what's the philosophy?
So I think capital efficient businesses are usually the best businesses to
Mm,
build because it allows you to really find product market fit without taking on, let's say I raised a bunch of money for
yeah,
MicroAcquire
yes,
and I'm
which you
in a
could.
rush to
Mhm.
charge commissions. I'm in a rush to figure everything out. You don't, without that pressure, you're able to move at a pace that I think leads to better products because
More
you're not.
organic. Hmm.
Yeah, because you have to think creatively and you have to really talk with customers and really figure out what should be your priorities each week. Like what features are we building? What is a bottleneck for either buyers or sellers? And so, having a capital efficient business model also gives you a lot of freedom as well. Like I think for entrepreneurs listening to this, and maybe you're running a startup and you're thinking, let's go raise a bunch of venture capital and, see if we can build something huge. I would recommend to them is focus on customers first and be scrappy and, talk to customers as much as possible. And then when you finally get product market fit and you start to see revenue growing in a repeatable fashion, you might not want to raise money. You might have such a profitable business, like you just mentioned, your friend
Yes.
whose goals, those businesses can
This, yeah.
sell for like 5-10 million bucks.
Yeah.
That's life changing money.
Hmm.
But when you bring on investors, you push the goalpost back. So now, if you sell for 10 million, that's not really a success in
Yeah.
the venture landscape. So
Yeah.
I guess that was another aspect was I'm a scrappy entrepreneur and I didn't want to raise money initially.
Doesn't mean that you won't in the future, but you want to see how the product evolves and build a team and do it as lean startup model as much as possible, right?
Yeah, I think the best time to raise money is when you have a clear plan for how you're going to use the funds.
Mm,
Meaning, if I take on this capital, I am really confident I can at least 10x
boom.
my business.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you literally, because that's what venture capital is. It's rocket fuel.
Yeah.
If you put rocket fuel into a rocket that's not ready to take off, it explodes. So I might raise capital in the future. I haven't ruled that out, but the business right now is so profitable and it operates so efficiently that I might not ever need to. And just another side note too, with business apps, I bootstrapped that company. I only raised $100,000 when I was 21, and
And you
that
sold
was
it for how much? And you sold it for how much when you sold the company?
I have actually never publicly said,
Okay, okay,
so I won't mention
okay,
that. But
okay.
it was enough to make me happy. I'll leave it at that. It was a
Yes, yes.
number that allowed me to move on to other ventures and not
Got
have
it.
to worry about finances.
Got it. Got it. Got it. And that's when. And the second one you also sold for. Is it bigger or smaller than the first one?
So the second business I actually sold 12 months after the first acquisition.
Okay. Okay.
So that acquisition was basically a build to sell play.
Okay.
I saw an opportunity in the market to build a piece of software that a larger strategic buyer would
You know they
benefit
would
from.
buy. Okay.
Yeah, so I built it, and then
12
from
months.
the
Boom.
first month, I was communicating with potential buyers, built the relationships early, and that's another
Mm,
key if you're looking to sell your business is it can take a while. So fostering those relationships and mapping out who could potentially buy this. And so with Allcoin, when the product was at a point of maturity to where we felt it was a good time to sell it, we reached out to the people that had expressed interest in potentially buying it. And we sold that, yeah, pretty much 12 months after we incorporated the business.
mm. Do you see MicroAcquire? Do you see any other competitions in the marketplace that you see? Oh, yeah, that could be a competition that is doing something similar. Like, what's going on with it? Like, just the landscape.
Um, I mean, it's really a market ruled by brokers and investment bankers right
Mm,
now. There's a few other marketplaces that you can look at. Flippa is a good one.
yeah.
Empire Flippers is another one.
Yes.
So there's a few out there, and those are all great marketplaces. And the way that MicroAquire differentiates is we specifically focus on high quality software businesses,
Mm,
and like no domains, no content businesses, no affiliate.
yeah.
Those are great businesses. I have a background in SaaS, and
SaaS.
that's
Yeah.
my domain knowledge is. So that's what I built the marketplace for.
Mm.
Um, but it's kind of a blue ocean opportunity. I don't expect that to last forever. I think people are starting to realize that buying businesses or people interested in buying businesses is at a level that has never been seen before. And so I'll
Do you
probably have
see
a
do you see
few.
a spike after COVID for
It was
MicroAcquire?
actually right at COVID. I don't know what caused it, but
Mm.
my only assumption was people were taking money out of the market to put into
Different things,
businesses
yeah.
that were able to cash flow, like alternative assets or alternative investments. But yeah, COVID, we definitely saw.
Do you see the hockey stick kind of like that in the last
We
12
did,
months?
and obviously, I don't want to say I'm benefiting from such a
Yes.
bad time in the world, but I think what it did is it just really accelerated. Typical acquisitions was steak dinner, handshake, stuff like that.
Now it's
Everything
a
was
Zoom call, right?
yeah. So now it's online, and people
Yeah,
are comfortable with that, and that's
yeah.
maybe another piece of advice for entrepreneurs listening is one of my theses when building businesses is looking at building a business in an unobvious market that will become
Mm.
obvious over time. So,
What do you mean by that? Expand on that.
so three examples. Business Apps was a mobile app builder for small businesses to quickly build native iOS and Android applications. And
Okay.
as soon as I saw the iPhone came out, I thought every business is going to want to get on this phone. That one was an obvious problem in an obvious market.
Mm.
And so I kind of got lucky with that venture.
Mm.
Altcoin was a bet on the crypto markets. I
Mm.
thought this was an unobvious problem that would become obvious.
Mm.
I was semi-correct with that one because the crypto market's like 10 times what they were when I
Yes.
sold that
Yeah.
business. So maybe I
Yeah.
should have held on to that.
Yes.
And then with MicroAcquire, I felt that with so many entrepreneurs exiting businesses, with companies going public and minting millionaires, that
Mhm.
there'd be a large amount of individuals looking to acquire companies rather than
Mm.
start new companies, almost as a new form of entrepreneurship.
It is. It is. Yes.
And I didn't
I'm
know.
very supportive of that as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really can be a great way to get into entrepreneurship, especially if you're not technical or you don't have a good idea. You can buy a business and apply what you're good at, whether that's sales or marketing,
Marketing.
SEO, whatever that might be. But
Hmm.
I didn't think I was going to be right, but I made a bet that this is a market that's not obvious today. It's literally a startup that helps startups sell to other startups. So it sounded kind of ridiculous, but I thought, you know, people are going to be looking to buy these businesses, and I need to build a more efficient way of helping these businesses get acquired. And that's what I did. And then as MicroAquire started to grow, just the buyer pool just has exploded in the last 12 months. So market timing is the number one reason for startup success. So
So you're almost saying that just to be almost a little bit early, just a little, or not too early, but just early enough, then when the problem becomes more obvious, the demand becomes more obvious, you've put yourself in a position to kind of capitalize on that, right?
yeah, I think if you look at some of the biggest companies around, you'll notice that, they started in a low TAM market, and then that
True,
market grew over time. There's
true,
countless examples of that.
true.
Salesforce as an example, they
Yeah,
said every software solution is going to go to the cloud. We're going
cloud,
to
yeah.
do this thing called software as a service.
Hmm.
And they were right. They made a bet on something unobvious. Like, no, you don't need to come to my office, install this software.
Yeah, this
You can,
machine, yeah.
yeah, like you can just access this from your computer. And
Hmm.
they made that bet early, and they were
Yes,
obviously very right.
yes.
So yeah, look at what seems unobvious to everybody else, but obvious to you, and make a bet. And then, like, another great example would be all of the entrepreneurs that made big bets on remote work being the future.
Yes.
There was a big shift in the world over the past, 12, 14 months,
Hmm.
and they were right,
Hmm.
where, remote, that really just accelerated their businesses. But that's one example off the top of my head. But yeah, and those are around today. And you can think about the place I would start if you're looking to think about markets and market timing is think about what the world is going to look like in 2 years,
Mm,
not
mm,
what it looks like today. So if
mm,
you're building like remote tools and stuff like that,
mm,
you're in a very competitive market. Tons of other entrepreneurs are in there. But you want to be looking at what is the next
vision.
phase of SaaS or the next phase of software, and build
Mm,
tools for that.
Where do you see the SaaS world is going?
It's a great question. I think there's a lot of opportunity in just data and analytics. Like a lot of stuff I think about with MicroAquire as an example is no one really knows what a startup's worth. Like people have formulas they can kind of
Mm,
give you, which are fairly accurate. But with MicroAquire, I'm able to gather real market data. So if you have a SaaS
mm,
company doing $1 million a year, growing at 20%, 3% churn, I can show you with real market data what these businesses are really selling for today.
mm,
So I think that's interesting. Anything in terms of automation,
mm,
I think, if you look at any sort of use case with an Excel spreadsheet, I think that's a business idea in the making.
mm.
Um, there's a ton. Machine learning, AI, that's a little too technical for me, but I think machine learning has a lot of interesting use cases that we'll be seeing in the next, 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
Interesting, because when you see so many businesses, you have insights about, hey, these are things that are kind of selling, these are things that's kind of working. You kind of have a little crystal ball just because you have so many entrepreneurs and so much data coming to you, right?
I do see a lot of startups. That is definitely true, and I think the most eye-opening part about MicroAquire is just how well entrepreneurs are doing that you just never hear about. Like you
Mm,
don't hear about, again, we'll go back to your
mm,
example of your
mm,
friend looking to build
mm.
$1 million business.
Yeah.
He's not going to get featured in TechCrunch or
No, no,
Forbes. He doesn't
yeah,
need to.
no,
But then these entrepreneurs sell businesses for, 5 million bucks.
yeah.
And
You never,
that,
yeah, you don't hear about them. You don't hear about them, you don't read about them, you just do the thing.
and I would love for that to change. I think that sort of entrepreneurship should be celebrated more, where you own the majority of the business. You built a profitable business. There's a big difference between a business and a startup. A startup, in my mind, is grow at all costs. Your only option is to exit the business. You're never going to cash flow the business if you have investors on the balance sheet. It depends
Mm,
on the situation, but most times. But when you own the majority of the business, you can cash flow it, you control, your destiny. You can do whatever you want. You own the whole company. You can sell it at any time.
Yes.
And those are the entrepreneurs I really admire, and I see a lot of them.
I love that. I love that. Awesome. Andrew, for our audience, our listeners, entrepreneurs watching this, listening to the show, if they want to connect with you, if they want to find out more about microacquire.com, of course, what's the best way to connect? Or even if they want to list their businesses or they're looking for businesses to buy, what are some of the options?
Yeah, just go to microacquire.com. You can sign up as a seller or a buyer. Happy to also answer emails to andrew@microacquire.com, or follow me on Twitter, Gazdecki, or on LinkedIn.
Yes. While Andrew could still do this, still lean and mean, you can still connect. When it gets bigger, it's going to be hard. Now it's a good opportunity. But I appreciate you. I appreciate you being on the show.
Thanks, Dan. I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you.